Welcome to the Top 10 S Box. Today we have listed the 10 best horror movies of all time for you. Let's get started. A Nightmare on Elm Street is at the 10th place of our list. A Nightmare on Elm Street is a 1984 American supernatural slasher film written and directed by Wes Craven. It is the first installment in the A Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. The film includes a morality play where sexually promiscuous teenagers are killed. Critics and film historians state that the film's premise is the struggle to define the distinction between dreams and reality, manifested by the lives and dreams of the teens in the film. The film was released on November 9, 1984, and grossed $57 million worldwide. A Nightmare on Elm Street was met with rave critical reviews and is considered to be one of the greatest horror films ever made, spawning a franchise consisting of 6 sequels, a television series, a crossover with Friday the 13th, various other merchandise, and a remake of the same name. The Thing is at the 9th place of our list. The Thing is a 1982 American science fiction horror film directed by John Carpenter from a screenplay by Bill Lancaster. It tells the story of a group of American researchers in Antarctica who encounter the eponymous Thing, a parasitic extraterrestrial life form that assimilates, then imitates, other organisms. The group is overcome by paranoia and conflict as they learn that they can no longer trust each other and that any of them could be the Thing. The film found an audience when released on home video and television. In the subsequent years, it has been reappraised as one of the best science fiction and horror films ever made and has gained a cult following. The Thing has spawned a variety of merchandise, including a 1982 novelization, haunted house attractions, board games, and sequels in comic books, a video game of the same name, and a 2011 prequel film of the same name. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is at the 8th place of our list. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a 1974 American slasher film produced and directed by Tobe Hooper from A Story. The film follows a group of friends who fall victim to a family of cannibals while on their way to visit an old homestead. The film was marketed as being based on true events to attract a wider audience and to act as a subtle commentary on the era's political climate. Although the character of Leatherface and minor story details were inspired by the crimes of murderer Ed Gein, its plot is largely fictional. It is the first film of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre was banned in several countries, and numerous theaters stopped showing the film in response to complaints about its violence. While it initially drew a mixed reception from critics, it was highly profitable, grossing over $30 million at the domestic box office, selling over 16.5 million tickets in 1974. It has since gained a reputation as one of the best and most influential horror films. Evil Dead 2 is at the 7th place of our list. Evil Dead 2 is a 1987 American comedy horror film directed by Sam Raimi. It is considered both a remake and sequel to the 1981 horror film The Evil Dead. Evil Dead 2 was produced by Robert Tappert and stars Bruce Campbell as Ash Williams, who vacations with his girlfriend to a remote cabin in the woods. He discovers an audio tape of recitations from a book of ancient texts, and when the recording is played, it unleashes a number of demons which possess and torment him. As with the first film, Evil Dead 2 has accumulated a large, international cult following. A direct sequel utilizing Raimi's original premise, Army of Darkness, followed in 1992. It was later followed by a soft reboot and continuation, Evil Dead, which was released in 2013, and a television series, Ash vs. Evil Dead, which aired from 2015 to 2018. Jaws is at the 6th place of our list. Jaws is a 1975 American thriller film directed by Steven Spielberg. The plot centers on a professional shark hunter hunts a man-eating great white shark that attacks beachgoers at a summer resort town. Murray Hamilton plays the mayor, and Lorraine Gary portrays Brody's wife. Regarded as a watershed moment in motion picture history, Jaws was the first major motion picture to be shot on the ocean and won several awards for its music and editing. It was the highest-grossing film of all time until the release of Star Wars 2 years later, Both films were pivotal in establishing the modern Hollywood business model, which pursues high box office returns from action and adventure films with simple high-concept premises, released during the summer in thousands of theaters and advertised heavily, and in 2001, the Library of Congress selected it for preservation in the United States National Film Registry. Halloween is at the 5th place of our list. Halloween is a 1978 American independent slasher film directed and scored by John Carpenter, co-written with producer Deborah Hill, with P.J. Sauls and Nancy Kyes in supporting roles. The plot centers on a mental patient, Michael Myers, who was committed to a sanitarium for murdering his babysitting teenage sister on Halloween night when he was 6 years old. 15 years later, he escapes and returns to his hometown, where he stalks a female babysitter and her friends while under pursuit by his psychiatrist. The film grossed $70 million, becoming one of the most profitable independent films of all time. It is considered one of the greatest and most influential horror films ever made. In 2006, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Alien is at the 4th place of our list. Alien is a 1979 science fiction horror film directed by Ridley Scott and written by Dan O'Bannon. Based on a story by O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett. It follows the crew of the commercial space tug Nostromo, who, after coming across a mysterious derelict spaceship on an undiscovered moon, find themselves up against an aggressive and deadly extraterrestrial set loose on the Nostromo. It was met with mixed reviews on release, but was a box office success, winning the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, 3 Saturn Awards, and a Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. Critical reassessment since then has made Alien widely considered to be one of the greatest science fiction and horror films of all time, and as the 33rd greatest film of all time by Empire. Psycho is at the 3rd place of our list. Psycho is a 1960 American psychological horror thriller film produced and directed by Alfred Hitchcock. The screenplay, written by Joseph Stefano, was based on the 1959 novel of the same name by Robert Bloch. The plot centers on an encounter between on-the-run embezzler Marion Crane and shy motel proprietor Norman Bates and its aftermath, in which a private investigator, Marion's lover Sam Loomis, and her sister Lila investigate her disappearance. Psycho is now considered one of Hitchcock's best films, and is arguably his most famous work. It has been praised as a major work of cinematic art by international film critics and scholars due to its slick direction, tense atmosphere, impressive camera work, a memorable score and iconic performances. Psycho was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, including Best Supporting Actress for Lee and Best Director for Hitchcock. The Exorcist is at the 2nd place of our list. The Exorcist is a 1973 American supernatural horror film directed by William Friedkin and written for the screen by William Peter Blatty, based on his 1971 novel of the same name. It follows the demonic possession of a young girl and her mother's attempt to rescue her through an exorcism conducted by a pair of Catholic priests. A fire destroyed most of the set, some crew members died, and Blair and Burston suffered accidental long-term back injuries. Production took twice as long as scheduled and cost almost 3 times the initial budget. Some deaths and accidents that occurred have led to a belief that the film was cursed. The cultural conversation around the film, which also encompassed its treatment of Catholicism, helped it become the first horror film to be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture, one of 10 for which it was nominated, and winning for Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Sound. The Shining is at the top of our list. The Shining is a 1980 psychological horror film produced and directed by Stanley Kubrick and co-written with novelist Diane Johnson. The film's central character is Jack Torrance, an aspiring writer and recovering alcoholic who accepts a position as the off-season caretaker of the isolated historic Overlook Hotel in the Colorado Rockies, with his wife, Wendy Torrance, and young son, Danny Torrance. Danny is gifted with psychic abilities named Shining. After a winter storm leaves the Torrances snowbound, Jack's sanity deteriorates due to the influence of the supernatural forces that inhabit the hotel. In 2012, The Shining was ranked the 75th greatest film of all time in the Sight v Sound Directors Poll. 39 years after the original film, a sequel, Dr. Sleep, was released on November 8, 2019. We have come to the end of the video. Do not forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.